Have you ever wanted to explore a real ghost town? Well, odds are you've driven or hiked past remnants of a ghost town or a lost community without even realizing it. I'm Amanda Lamb. In today's conversation, WRAL's hidden history reporter Heather Leah takes us on an exploration of several ghost towns hidden atop mountains, beneath lakes, deep in the woods, even on an abandoned island. Heather, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So I always enjoy your Halloween content. So thank you for coming and talking to me around Halloween so we can share this with our listeners. So first of all, what is the definition of a ghost town? How does it come about?
Yeah, so a ghost town is basically a village or community that was abandoned by the people who lived there. And the ruins are still visible today. And there are ghost towns all over the state, in various states of decay. A lot of coastal ghost towns, for example, were abandoned due to wars or hurricanes. And some ghost towns are underneath lakes, which were sold off by residents and then flooded. And we did a whole podcast on towns hidden beneath North Carolina lakes.
We did, that's
right. Jordan Lake, Falls Lake, Lake Fontana, Lake Norman, they all have ghost towns underneath them. And some ghost towns are just ruins out in the woods. For example, I wouldn't exactly call Umstead Park a ghost town, but there are ruins of a previous community.
Sure.
It had its own church and schools and mills. And the Eno River has ruins as well and graveyards. So in general, a ghost town has to have a certain amount of ruins left over for there to be something to explore.
Right, something, kind of a map, a place that was actually there that you can kind of see tangible evidence of.
Yes, exactly. And so, for example, Portsmouth Village, it's in really good shape. It's abandoned and it's on an island, only accessible by boat. So it's kind of protected. But some ghost towns are really deep in the woods of the mountains, and they're difficult to access and really getting overtaken by nature. And most importantly, I think a lot of people are going to want to know which ghost towns they can visit and explore. So we'll talk about that too.
Absolutely. So tell me, let's first start with some coastal ghost towns. Tell me about Portsmouth Village and Brunswick Town.
Yeah, ghost towns have such a different character depending on where they are. If they're in the mountains or on the coast, they'll have a really different history. The footprints of colonial ghost towns can be found up and down the coast. And a lot of the coastal ghost towns are very old, right? They're older than the ones perhaps in the mountains. A lot of these ghost towns along the coast were destroyed by the dangers of the era of the 1700s and 1800s, hurricanes, floods, cannon fire, and the wars. The Revolutionary War and the Civil War actually destroyed several of these towns. Because of that, many colonial ghost towns, again, colonial, I mean before the Revolutionary War, have almost no remnants. But Portsmouth Village, it was established on an island in the mid-1800s, and it has a surprising number of surviving structures. It's got a church, a school, a post office, a general store, a historic house, and a life-saving station. So when you go to that island, you can really see a lot of these structures that were part of the town. And a big reason it was protected from destruction was it was so cut off. There was a threat of people attacking it during the Civil War. When Union soldiers marched down the Outer Banks, many residents fled these coastal towns, which are now ghost towns. But Portsmouth was protected because it was out on an island.
It was harder to get to.
Get to. And so the residents did flee just in case, but and a large portion did not return, but it's been pretty protected, and you can go visit that town. It's only accessible by boat, but it is a place that you can go and see and walk around. Now, Brunswick Town is also on the coast. That one's even older. It was built in the 1720s. There aren't many things in North Carolina
that date back that far.
Right. That
we can actually see.
That we can see. No, not a lot of it remains standing, but the town's map is still visible in the footprints and foundations of the town. So you can see the foundations of the shops, homes, you can see the old wells, you can see the graves. And there's even this huge foundation, which was one of the original governor's mansions, and it was Russellborough. So there's the foundation of a governor's mansion out there, and you can see like where the rooms were. You could see which was the living room and the kitchen.
I'm picturing it as you're talking about it. You have such a vivid description. It's great.
Thank you. It's cool to see in person. And then probably the coolest structure out there is there's this massive skeleton of a church, St. Philip's Anglican Church. It's still standing. Now, a lot of it's gone, but the walls are still there and the bones are still there. It is smattered with bullet holes and even cannon fire. It's impressive. It's beautiful. It's got these huge arched windows, and it's got old antique trees with Spanish moss just creating a curtain overhead that just flutters in the wind. British soldiers during the Revolutionary War began spreading rumors that an attack was going to come to this little coastal town of Brunswick Town. And they said it was going to be razed and burned. So residents fled to Wilmington, which was thriving. And in 1776, the British did come through and destroy much of the town. But you can go visit both of these towns.
Both of these sites. That's fantastic. Well, when we come back, some mountain ghost towns you can explore and even stay the night in. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. Okay, so let's talk about Proctor, Mortimer, and Judson.
Yeah. And we're doing the mountains and coast today, but so you all know there are ghost towns closer to the Triangle, and they're not as well kept and able to be seen, but there are some around here too. But for the mountains and the coast, all right. So for Proctor, Mortimer, and Judson, these are really hard to access. These aren't ones that you can just easily go to, but I will tell you about one that you can go to. All right, so you have to hike deep into the woods to find the ruins of these ghost towns. They've been swallowed up by the mountain forests, and they are not as well kept as the coastal ones we just talked about. Several of them were destroyed, Judson and Proctor specifically, because during World War II, the federal government needed to create a dam, and they created Fontana Lake, in order to get this hydroelectric power for the war. And when they did that, all the residents sold their land, and then they flooded this whole area. So these two towns are really hard to access because any remnants,
underwater.
They're underwater,
right,
or they're around the lake or down the tributaries, but just completely swallowed up because no one can get to them.
Yeah.
But people have been there because there are pictures online. And Proctor was a thriving lumber town. It was on Hazel Creek. A lot of it's beneath Fontana Lake. The ruins of the mill are deep in the woods, and they're near Backcountry Campsite number 86. I haven't been out here to this one.
Very specific.
That's because people have gone out there and found
documented it. Okay.
Right, and there's a family cemetery. Photos show a pretty big brick ruins from the lumber company's kiln, as well as a sawmill and some other structures. It's really eerie and overgrown because it's so inaccessible. Proctor that's Proctor. There's also Mortimer. It's along Wilson Creek. Again, ruins getting reclaimed by the forest. But there is a cotton mill and overgrown foundations of crumbling buildings. There are ghost towns out there where I've actually seen schools. So these are just out in the woods, very eerie and overgrown. And Judson's ruins are mostly underwater. We have done a podcast on the road to nowhere.
We have, that's right. So that
story's
area.
Connected, yeah.
So there is a ghost town where you can spend the night, right? Where is that?
Yes. So if you dare, I would love to do it. Henry River Mill Village. So this is, in my opinion, the most well-kept ghost town on this list. It's just decayed enough to be creepy. It's probably one of the youngest ghost towns. So it was built in the early 1900s, and it was abandoned around 50 years ago. There were a variety of reasons, but mostly economical is what happened. So it has a bunch of the original wooden mill houses. It was a mill town, and these houses most of them are still standing. You can look inside the windows and see, the windows are boarded up, but you can see the old furniture and creaking stairways, the old fireplaces. Some of them just have mounds of dirt inside. There are overgrown paths and stairways that just go nowhere. Outside, you'll just see a stone stairway crawling with ivy, and it just goes to nothing. There's acres and acres to explore, and there's a 2-story brick shop that's there as well. This place is so visually striking and so dystopian looking that it was actually used as District 12 in the Hunger Games movie. So
oh my gosh.
if you watch the movie, you will see Henry River Mill Village.
So if you're a fan of that movie, that's a place you probably want to visit.
Yes, and you will. I've looked at stills of the movie, and you can recognize.
Like,
it. There's a scene where Peeta I think he's giving the bread to Katniss, and you can see the store behind him.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Now, of course, this one's supposed to be haunted. Some have claimed to see lanterns floating down by the old mill site, and even the silhouette of horses walking by, almost like people are still going to work each day to the mill.
Okay.
Others claim to hear people talking or laughing in the empty homes. This is a really cool one to visit because you can just buy tickets and they'll give you a history tour and they'll let you just walk around and you can explore and take pictures. And then you can stay the night if you want to. And they even do ghost tours.
Oh, that's fascinating. Well, Heather, thank you so much for sharing these spooky places with us right around Halloween. This has been the WRAL Daily Download, a production of WRAL News. Check out my new true crime podcast from WRAL Studios, The Killing Month, August 1978. Details the investigation into the serial murders carried out by a band of outlaw brothers in Pennsylvania. Episodes 1 through 4 are available now wherever you get your podcasts.